Section 4.5, greatest common factor and factoring by grouping. Greatest common factor, known as GCF, is the greatest factor that divides each term of a polynomial evenly. So step 1, we're going to identify the GCF of all terms. Step 2, set up as a fraction to reduce. Step 3, place the GCF in front of the parentheses. So example 1, it says 12x cubed plus 30x squared. So we need to find a number that is common to 12 and 30. So you're going to put division lines underneath. Factors of 12, we have 2, 6, 3, and 4. 30, we have 3, 5, 6, and 10. Notice that the biggest number they share in common is a 6. So I'm going to use a 6 in the denominator. Then your exponents of your variables, power of 3, power of 2. They only share 2 pieces in common. That's why it's x squared. So step 1 was identify the GCF, and we've identified it as 6x squared. Step 2 says set up as a fraction, which we did to reduce. Step 3 is parentheses with the GCF on the outside. So 6x squared comes on the front. And now we're going to do 12 divided by 6, that is 2. 3 x's took 1 away, we have an x. Positive 30 divided by 6 is positive 5. 2 x's took 2 x's, we have no x's. So this is our factored form. On B, it says 12c squared d cubed minus 30c squared d squared minus 3cd. So again, looking at our numbers, 12 we have 2, 3, 4, and 6. 30, 2, 3, 5, 6, 15, and 3 is just 3 and 1. So obviously 3 is our only number in common, so 3 is going in the denominator. Then you look at your variables. 2 c's, 3 c's, 1 c. They only share 1 c in common. 3 d's, 2 d's, 1 d. They share 1 d in common. So for this problem, our GCF is 3cd. So 3cd is in front. And the parentheses is what's reduced. So 12 divided by 3 is 4. 2 c's took 1, we have a c. 3 d's we took 1, we have 2 of them. Minus sign. 30 divided by 3 is a 10. 3 c's took 1, we have 2. 2 d's took 1, we have 1. Minus sign. 3 divided by 3 is a 1. C's and c cancel. D and d cancel. So here's our reduced form. 3cd times the parentheses 4cd squared minus 10c squared d minus 1. In example 2, they didn't want you to find the GCF. They told you specifically to factor out the quantity negative 5a squared b. So they're telling us exactly what they want us to factor out. So underneath each term, you're going to write negative 5a squared b for each of them. So that is what is our GCF on the outside of our parentheses, negative 5a squared b. And then we're going to reduce. Negative 5 and negative 5 becomes positive 1. You don't have to write the 1, it's implied. Power of 4, power of 2. So 4 take away 2 leaves us with 2 a values. The b and the b cancel each other out. Negative divided by a negative makes it positive sign. 10 divided by 5 is a 2. 3 a's took 2 away, I still have an a. 2 b's took 1 away, I still have a b. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. 15 divided by 5, there's my 3. 2 a's took away 2 a's, they cancel. 3 b's took 1 b, I have 2 b's. And this is where we would stop. Yes, this will factor further down, but that is in a later lesson. Example 3. What happens when they give it to you in the form of x cubed parentheses x plus 2 closed minus x parentheses x plus 2 closed minus 9 parentheses x plus 2 closed? Well, in this problem, they gave you your GCF. Notice that they each have something in common. All the terms have x plus 2 attached. So another way of writing this, if you wanted to think about it, you can use a different variable. You can say y equals the parentheses x plus 2. Now, why did I use the substitution? So first thing, if we just based it off what we had at the start, we noticed that the bubbles are the same for all of them. So x plus 2 is on the outside. And then you're left with x cubed minus x minus 9. So in some case, you weren't a student that noticed that. So if I had my original problem again, x cubed parentheses x plus 2 minus x parentheses x plus 2 minus 9 parentheses x plus 2. If you did not see that x plus 2 was a GCF, and I used y equivalent to x plus 2, so I'm saying that y is going to represent the bubbles that are x plus 2. So I become x cubed y minus xy minus 9y. And now I notice that they all share a y in common. So that's what my GCF, if I use substitution, would be. So then we become y parentheses x cubed minus x minus 9, which is what we had in the other one. And we said that y represented x plus 2. So all I had to do is bring back x plus 2, and the second piece slides down. So there's two ways of doing this. You can either notice that they all share the same GCF in the bubbles, or pick a variable to represent that specific bubble or multiple bubbles for your GCF pieces. Factor by grouping. So the polynomial must have 4 terms. So in order to do grouping, you need to have 4 terms to start with. You're going to put a bracket with the first 2 terms and the second 2 terms. For step 1, step 2, you're going to factor out the GCF from each bracket, and step 3 is make 2 parentheses to finalize. So in example 4, it says 6ab minus 21a plus 4b minus 12. So step 1 says bracket the first 2 terms and the second 2 terms. You isolate the terms, leave the sign in the middle alone. Notice that the plus sign did not get affected. Then it says factor out the GCF from each bracket. So I'm looking at each bracket individually. So this first bracket, 6 and 21 are factors of the number 3. A, B, A, they both have an A in common. Then I look at the second one. The numbers 4 and 14, they're both even numbers, so we know they're divisible by 2. The first term has a B, the second one does not, so 2 is the only thing they have in common. We need to factor out each bracket, so apply what we did on the first example, making it in the front of the parentheses. So we see 3A bracket plus sign 2 bracket. So 6 divided by 3, that is a 2. AB, take away the A, we only have a B. Minus sign. 21 divided by 3 is a 7. A, take away the A, there is no A. You go to the next set. 4B divided by positive 2, because it's on the outside, you're dividing by positive 2. That is a 2 with a B. Negative 14 divided by positive 2 is a negative 7. Now we're at this point. Now notice that the bracket 2b minus 7 matches the bracket 2b minus 7. So if I applied my rules, that means that is the new GCF of both pieces. I'm dividing out 2b minus 7 out of both of them. So finalizing, you do all 2 parentheses. The GCF is in the first bubble, which is 2b minus 7. And what's left over, in this instance, it's 3a plus 2, goes in the second parentheses. And there's your factored form. I'm going to give you a set of patterns here. When you're doing grouping, when you have 4 terms, if it goes a positive term, a negative term, a negative term, and a positive term, you'll get a bracket with a negative sign, a minus in between, and a bracket with a negative sign. If you do a plus, plus, minus, minus, which means the first 2 terms are positive values and the second, third, and fourth terms are negative, you become a positive in the bracket, a negative in between, a positive in the bracket. If you have to have all positive straight through, then it's obviously plus, plus, plus. So when we look at example 5. It says x cubed plus 3x squared minus 3x minus 9. We have a positive term, a negative term, a negative term. So we are going to have positive minus positive, which means bracket the first two terms, bracket the second two terms. We're taking out the GCFs out of the first and the second. So we're taking out an x squared out of the first one. And now it's 3 and 9. I'm just looking at this one. It's a 3 inside. But when we bring it out, we see x squared bracket minus sign 3, because there's a minus sign in between. Close the bracket. Let's look at our values. 3 x's took 2 x's. I have an x. Positive 3x squared. I took the x squared. I have a positive 3. Now in the second half, remember there's a minus 3 is what we're pulling out. Just not plain 3. It's a minus 3. So 3x divided by negative 3. Negative 3x and negative 3 makes it positive x. Negative 9 and a negative 3 makes it positive 3. These brackets must match. If they don't, check your signs. Since they match, you go to 2 parentheses. Remember what I said previously. The GCF is what they have in common. They both share x plus 3. That is the first parentheses. The second parentheses is what's left over. In this instance, it's x squared minus 3. And you are factored. Example 6 says 24p squared q squared minus 18p squared q plus 60pq squared minus 45pq. Now, sometimes when you start a problem, before you can start, you may have to find a common GCF first. So on this one, we're going to first pull the common GCF of all. So I'm looking at the numbers 24, 18, 60, and 45. Well, 24 has actually, in this instance, we have 2, 12, 3, 8, 6, and 4. 18, we have 2, 9, 3, and 6. 60, we have 4, 15, 6, 10, 2, 30. 45, we have 5 and 9, 3 and 15. Now, when we look at this, 24 is a 3, 18 has a 3, 60 has a 3, 45 has a 3. So I'm going to pull a 3 out of each of them. Then I look at the variables. 2 p's, 2 p's, 1 p, 1 p. They all have a p in common. 2 q's, 1 q, 2 q's, 1 q. They have a q in common. So this is what's going to come out first. So we have 3pq, and then we have a bracket. And now we're reducing first. So 24 divided by 3 is 8. 2 p's take a p, we have a p. 2 q's take a q, we have a q. Minus sign, 18 divided by 3 is a 6. 2 p's take a p, we have a p. Q's cancel out. Plus sign, 60 divided by 3 is a 20. The p's cancel, 2 q's have a q, we have a q left over. Negative 45 by 3 is negative 15. P and p cancels, q and q cancels. So now we're at this point. Now again, we are going to bracket the 2 first terms and the 2 second terms. So 3pq slides down. In the first grouping, 8 and 6, they're factors of the number 2, and they both have a p in common. In the second one, 20 and 15, they're both factors of 5. So we have 2p plus sign 5, close the bracket. So 8 divided by 2 is a 4. P and p leaves you with q. Negative 6 divided by 2 is a negative 3. P and P cancels. Next term, 20q divided by 5, that is 4 with a q. 15 divided by 5 minus makes it negative 3. Our two parentheses match. So we still have 3pq sliding down. You're going to go to two parentheses. Remember, the first parentheses is going to be your GCF, and our GCF is 4q minus 3. So we have 4q minus 3. And then in the second one, it's what's left over. We have 2p plus 5 left over. So we write 2p plus 5. And you're factored. So in example 7, sometimes problems need to be rearranged. So when we look at this problem, 4x plus 6pa minus 8a minus 3px. If we treat it as it is, so I'm going to write it over here, 4x plus 6pa minus 8a minus 3px. If we were to follow the natural order of grouping, we group the first two terms and group the second two terms. In the first term, first parentheses, 4 and 6 are factors of the number 2, but that's all they have in common. When we look to the next one, they only have a value of 1 in common, so nothing can factor out. So you cannot break it down. So sometimes you need to rearrange pieces. So when you're coming to problems like this, usually you swap the second and fourth terms. Second and fourth swap positions, keep the signs with them. So I'm going to rewrite this as 4x minus 3px minus 8a plus 6pa. Now I have a plus, minus, minus, plus situation. So if I group my first two and my second two new terms, in the first one, 4 and 3 variables, numbers don't have anything, but they both have an x in common, so there is a GCF. When I look at the 8 and 6, they both have a 2 in common and also an a, so something else is coming out. So now we see x bracket minus sign 2a bracket. So 4x took the x, I have a 4. Negative 3px took the x, I have negative 3p. Remember, we're not dividing by 2a, we're dividing by negative 2a. So negative 8a divided by negative 2a makes it positive 4. Positive 6pa divided by negative 2a is negative 3p. Our bubble brackets match. So remember, it breaks down into two parentheses. The first parentheses is your GCF, which is 4 minus 3p. And the second one is our leftover. In this instance, it is x minus 2a. And you are